Star Wars was created in 1977, the most commercially successful film of the 1970s. The release of Star Wars is significant in terms of film history, since the film was a massive breakthrough in the field of visual special effects, and thus a new standard for science fiction and action films that made use of these means and consequently shaped the cinema landscape of the 1980s. E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Star Wars Episode V The Empire Strikes Back, and Star Wars Episode VI Return of the Jedi are the most commercially successful films of the 1980s, an indication of the fascination of consumers for hyper-realistic special effects. However, Star Wars has been relevant in another way for the further development of the audiovisual entertainment medium. The following films of the Star Wars saga established the concept of the franchise as a recipe for success, a common marketing method in the 90s. Star Wars Episode I The Phantom Menace, Toy Story 2 and Terminator 2 Judgment Day are all sequels or prequels in an already existing franchise and are at the same time among the top-selling films of the 1990s. Terminator 2 Judgment Day represents another milestone in film history in that it was the first film to cost over $100 million in production. Avatar, by far the film that generated the most revenue in the 2000s, cost $273 million and generated over $2 billion in revenue. Avatar can be understood as another important guide in the following development of the film. This film was shot in stereoscopic 3D. The popularity of 3D films decreased again in the course of the 2010s, but can be seen as a pioneer for other entertainment technologies such as virtual reality and augmented reality. Star Wars Episode II Attack of the Clones marks the beginning of a digital revolution in the film industry as the first completely digitally filmed feature film. But surprisingly, no noteworthy innovation has been found in the 2010s. The trend is clear, blockbusters are becoming more and more expensive and are reaching ever wider masses. Streaming films on demand is the new standard. In January of 2019, Netflix joined the Motion Picture Association of America, an important step and an indication of the growing importance of streaming providers. Meanwhile, more and more films with A-list actors are being produced exclusively for Netflix and other streaming providers.
I mean, it's even bigger than the revolution that sound brought to cinema. It's the revolution of cinema itself, back 120 years ago, 115 years ago.
The viewing habits seem to have hardly changed. One could almost assume a certain sluggishness in the masses who prefer to endlessly consume sequels with the same plot. But one drastic development is noticeable. Series are getting more and more sales. What used to be classified as a second-rate silver screen for actors is now a market that sometimes has more money than some feature film productions. Some episodes of the high-revenue Game of Thrones series almost cost $10 million in production. Serial productions market themselves incomparably well. The consumer of the 2010s likes to binge-watch. What is fast film? Fast film is the end product that is created when a medium such as film is homogenized and compressed until it becomes a single, easily digestible mass that fills you up as quick as possible and tastes good to everyone. Video artist Virgil Wiedrich created his short film with the same title in 2003. The action is generic, a man wants to save a kidnapped woman. The special thing about it, however, the almost 9-minute film consists of 65,000 cutouts. Cutout parts from 300 different films, which Wiedrich collages into one narrative film. While the title of his work may refer more to the film's rapid pacing, whether or not the filmmaker deliberately chose it, it is a perfect example of the interchangeability that popular films often have in common. In an interview, director Nicolas Winding Refn argued that a film that everyone likes cannot have substance. Fast food consumption has little to do with enjoyment. It's about satisfying cravings. You consume sugar and fats that the body can digest quickly. Mostly there's little nutritional value in them. When the food is digested, you often feel uncomfortable. The same principle can also be applied to the consumption of films and series. In the end, a film that suits everyone's tastes has no nutritional value. According to Baudrillard, the increasing mechanization of the medium is not innocent in that. So what can be the alternative? For a medium as transcendental as the film as such, this is not the end, but only a further stage of development. In order for the film as a time-based medium to regain value, the demands on the film of the future must be to use the symptoms of its illness as a stylistic device. The film is a medium that has already experienced a renaissance in several ways. Exemplary are the films of the French Nouvelle Vague, which prove that the film neither has to adjust to what the viewers expect, nor to the modus operandi of the industry. Another example are the films of the Dogma 95 movement in Denmark, which refused to adhere the basic standards of the increasingly technical film industry of the 1990s, by, for example, in their films, not even allowing fixed camera settings or lighting technology, and did not even mention the director in the credits of the film. Some creative talents in the industry have long made the problem of the betrayal of the images a topic in the cinematic work. In David Lynch's Lost Highway, the character of the Mystery Man can be understood as a kind of exaggerated representation of the director himself. The character is seen every now and then with a camera, possibly a connection to the beginning of the film, where the characters Fred and Renee find a mysterious video of their home outside their door. At another point, the Mystery Man is talking to Fred right in front of him and claims to be at Fred's house at the same time, whereupon he hands him a cell phone through which his voice can also be heard. A narrative monument to the betrayal of the images. Here, Lynch creates a meta level that sublimely comments on the voyeurism in the viewer's gaze. Another filmmaker who deals thematically with this motif is Michael Haneke. In Cachet, for example, a family also receives film recordings of their home. One of these recordings is the first scene in the film, so that the viewer at first believes to be seeing a normal scene. This deceptive mode of representation runs through the film as a common thread. Often insofar as that Haneke's calm, firm camera perspectives can hardly be distinguished from the images of the suggested stalker. The subject of viewer voyeurism also appears in Haneke's Funny Games. The film initially gives the impression of belonging to the subgenre of home invasion horror films. What is special about it, however, is that from the moment the family begins to be tortured, the figures suddenly turn to the camera and speak directly to the viewer about his fascination with the violence depicted. Herein lies the real horror of Funny Games. Not in the anticipated fictionalized violence, but rather in being confronted with your own perverse fascination for the events depicted. One watches horror films precisely because they want to see the horrific. And in this regard, the figure of Peter from Funny Games is absolutely right when he breaks through the fourth wall and accuses the viewer of voyeuristic features in his viewing behavior.
Do you think it's enough? I mean, you want a real ending, right? With plausible plot development, don't you?
Haneke takes the idea that there are certain traits of voyeuristic fascination in the medium to an extreme. Here, an adolescent boy with an obsession for films the murder of a girl he commits himself, and then proceeds to watch the video again and again with a kind of alienated interest. In the latest work of David Lynch's filmography, Inland Empire, the betrayal of the images. The betrayal of the images on the one hand, and the boundary between viewer and film, the one-sided relationship, which is defined by an apparently insurmountable separation of the two on the other hand, is the core theme of the film. Perhaps the most complex and inaccessible work by the director, this is the work of a filmmaker who, symbolized by the protagonist, wants to try to transcend the medium itself and thus to finally remove the distance between medium and consumer. In the film, the protagonist ends up going insane. Lynch suggests the impossibility of this last step of transcendence. In his 1958 essay, Crisis in Photography and the Prospect of Overcoming It, published in the Polish photography magazine Fotografia, the artist Zdzisław Beksiński formulated, after contemporary colleagues criticized his surrealistically constructed photographs, which did not correspond to the preferred naturalistic photographs of the time, a similar realization. According to Beksiński, the photography crisis is her deadlock claim to naturalism. He saw a possible solution in, quote, breaking with traditional photography and trying to turn photography into abstract art without referring to reality. But that is exactly what the claim of the film of the future must be. Instead of enslaving the film in terms of technology, the film has to make these technical possibilities an instrument and go even further than the most modern techniques, such as virtual reality or augmented reality. While this is the first step in the medium's advancement into reality, the future of film after the fast film era must be to finally eliminate the fourth wall, the ultimate transgression of the film into tangible reality.